Hey everyone, 3 Samsung Galaxy S smartphones. I'm Josh Smith with GottaBeMobile.com, and today I want to show you the Samsung Galaxy S3, Galaxy S4, and Galaxy S5 in case you're interested in upgrading or buying your first phone. A lot of times we see carriers still have all of these phones available for sale, so you might see this for free, $99 and $199. Sometimes we see the price drop to $99, $50, or even $0, and sometimes free on this Galaxy S3. Or maybe you're looking to upgrade from the Galaxy S3 to the latest, or maybe just to last year's model. I want to run through some quick changes and design features. Now, overall, you'll notice that these phones are pretty similar in size. Now, if you check the description of this video, you'll see tons of photos so that you can actually see the size difference a little bit better. But you get some variety of features. We have a 4.8-inch display. We have a 5-inch or 4.97-inch display on the Galaxy S4 and a 5.1-inch display on the Galaxy S5. Now, the size isn't the only thing that changes between these. The display over here is actually going to be a lot brighter and a lot nicer looking. All of these are on the maximum brightness, and you might not be able to tell as much in the video, but right here we can tell it's okay, better, best. You get the brightest screen over here, and there's some different screen technology in here so that when I go outside, the screen will automatically get brighter. There's an ultra dimming mode, and there's even a mode that will make this screen go black and white so that your battery will last much, much longer. Now, the other differences that we see, we all have this same home button, physical home button. In the Galaxy S5, this is a fingerprint reader, so I can swipe my finger here to unlock the phone, to unlock some documents that I've hidden on the phone and locked up, and to make payments using PayPal. These two home buttons don't have that capability. We have capacitive buttons on the side, so small, almost touchscreen-like buttons on the side of each of these. And for the Galaxy S5, it's different. You can see here, this is a menu option. This is actually multitasking, and then if I want menu, I tap and hold. This is actually also a little bit nicer to get to Google Now. If you use that service, if you hold this, it's going to go right to Google Now. And I can just say, okay, Google. Okay, Google. And it will open up. I can't do that for either of these phones. If I hold this down and then tap, I can get to Google Now. And if I hold this down, I can tap and get to Google Now. So that's a little bit of a different thing there. In terms of the design, we see an upgrade as we move through each of these. This is a very, very plasticky design, one that Samsung was given a lot of attention for, not in a positive way, and it just doesn't feel real great. Now with the Galaxy S4, they upgraded to a new mix or blend of plastic, and there's a slight crosshatch design there. This feels better than the S3. The S5 now has a soft touch plastic. This white is actually an off-white, so that may be a turn-off. You might want to go with the black one or hold out for an electric blue model, but this definitely feels a lot better, a little easier to get a grip. Speakers on the back of these, speakers somewhere on the Galaxy S3, must be coming out the back somewhere on there. Now on the S4 and the S5, on the top you get an IR port, and so what you can do with this is control your HDTV. That's something that you don't find on the Galaxy S3. Headphones are on top for all of them. Camera wise, we have a 16 megapixel camera. You can shoot 4K video and 1080p video. This does 1080p video, and I believe this is a 13 megapixel camera. I may be wrong on that. Check the comments. And then on this one, we have an older camera. And if you, again, check the description, we're going to have a shootout to show you what these look like, what the photos look like on each of these different devices. Now, on all of these, you can peel the back off. And this is kind of a Samsung trademark feature that allows you access to two key things. So I can stick a micro SD card in each of these to add more storage, which is good because usually the storage you buy it with is limited. And what I can also do is I can pull these batteries out and stick a new battery in. Now the battery is larger in the Galaxy S5 in capacity wise, even though it looks a little bigger. And what that means is you're going to get better battery life. And the screen is actually more power efficient on the Galaxy S5. I believe it's about 20% more power efficient. So if both of these screens are at the same brightness, this is going to use 20% less power. And that's going to translate into much longer battery life. Now you'll notice another key difference here when we look at the backs. There is a small rubber ring in here, and that's because the Galaxy S5 is water resistant. It's not waterproof. You cannot go stick this in feet and feet and feet of water, but it'll handle about 3 feet of water for 30 minutes. So that means if you drop it in a puddle, if you drop it in the sink while you're doing dishes, or pretty much all these little accidents that would otherwise render a phone useless, this will survive it as long as you have this back on tight and the little USB thing stuck in there to protect that. Both of these phones don't do that. If you want something like that, you're gonna have to stick one of these phones in a case. So like we have a life-proof case here for the Galaxy S3. And what's interesting is once we get this case on, we end up with a phone that is just about as thick as our Galaxy S5 and about as big. I'm not going to snap this in there right away, but that gets you a little bit more protection than these phones, or than just this phone on its own. So some people still may have a need for a case even on the Galaxy S5. But that's a quick look at the differences between these devices. Now again, there's going to be performance differences, and the Galaxy S3 is going to run an older version of Android, and you're going to get fewer updates at this point. We're approaching the middle of April 2014, and we're still waiting on an update for the Galaxy S3 to bring it up to par with these devices. But we're running the latest version of Android over here. There is a pulse reader back here, so if I pull my finger over this and use an S Health app, I'm going to be able to track my pulse and measure that. Something that is not built in, but you can find some apps that will use the camera to do that. Thanks for watching. Check out the description for a link to more information about this, and you can head over to GottaBeMobile.com to see more on each of these smartphones.
This is a story about a world obsessed with stuff. It's a story about a system in crisis. We're trashing the planet, we're trashing each other, and we're not even having fun. The good thing is that when we start to understand the system, we start to see lots of places to step in and turn these problems into solutions. The other day, I couldn't find my computer charger. My computer is my lifeline to my work, my friends, my music. So I looked everywhere, even in that drawer where this lives. I know you have one too, a tangle of old chargers, the sad remains of electronics past. How did I end up with so many of these things? It's not like I'm always after the latest gadget. My old devices broke or became so obsolete I couldn't use them anymore. And not one of these old chargers fits my computer. Ugh! This isn't just bad luck. It's bad design. I call it design for the dump. Design for the dump sounds crazy, right? But when you're trying to sell lots of stuff, it makes perfect sense. It's a key strategy of the companies that make our electronics. In fact, it's a key part of our whole unsustainable materials economy. Design for the dump means making stuff to be thrown away quickly. Today's electronics are hard to upgrade, easy to break, and impractical to repair. My DVD player broke and I took it to a shop to get fixed. The repair guy wanted $50 just to look at it. A new one at Target cost $39. In the 1960s, Gordon Moore, the giant brain who invented the semiconductor, predicted that electronics designers could double processor speed every 18 months. So far, he's been right. This is called Moore's Law. But somehow the bosses of these genius designers got it all twisted up. They seem to think that Moore's law means every 18 months we have to throw out our old electronics and buy more. Problem is, the 18 months that we use these things are just a blip in their entire life cycle. And that's where these dump designers aren't just causing a pain in our wallets, they're causing a global toxic emergency. You see, electronics start where most stuff starts, in mines and factories. Many of our gadgets are made from 1,000 different materials, shipped from around the world to assembly plants. There, workers turn them into products using loads of toxic chemicals like PVC, mercury, solvents, and flame retardants. Today, this usually happens in far-off places that are hard to monitor, but it used to happen near my home in Silicon Valley, which, thanks to the electronics industry, is one of the most poisoned communities in the US. IBM's own data revealed that its workers making computer chips had 40% more miscarriages and were significantly more likely to die from blood, brain, and kidney cancer. The same thing is starting to happen all around the world. It turns out the high-tech industry isn't as clean as its image. So, after its toxic trip around the globe, it lands in my hands. I love it for a year or so, and then it starts drifting further from its place of honor on my desk or in my pocket. Maybe it spends a little time in my garage before being tossed out. And that brings us to disposal, which we think of as the end of its life. But really, it's just moved on to become part of the mountains of e-waste we make every year. Remember how these devices were packed with toxic chemicals? Well, there's a simple rule of production. Toxics in, toxics out. Computers, cell phones, TVs, all this stuff is just waiting to release all their toxics when we throw them away. Some of them are slowly releasing this stuff even while we're using them. You know those fat old TVs that people are chucking for high-def flat screens? They each have about 5 pounds of lead in them. Lead, as in lead poisoning. So, almost all of this e-waste either goes from my garage to a landfill, or it gets shipped overseas to the garage workshop of some guy in Guiyu, China, whose job it is to recycle it. I've visited a bunch of these so-called recycling operations. Workers without protective gear sit on the ground, smashing open electronics to recover the valuable metals inside and chucking or burning the parts that no one will pay them for. So while I'm on to my next gadget, my last gadget is off poisoning families in Guiyu or India or Nigeria. 6 billion tons of e-waste have been dumped, burned, or recycled. And most recycling is anything but green. So are the geniuses who designed these electronics actually evil geniuses? I don't think so, because the problems they're creating are well hidden even from them. You see, the companies they work for keep these human and environmental costs out of sight and off their accounting books. It's all about externalizing the true costs of production. Instead of companies paying to make their facilities safe, the workers pay with their health. Instead of them paying to redesign using fewer toxics, villagers pay by losing their clean drinking water. Externalizing costs allow companies to keep designing for the dump. They get the profits and everyone else pays. When we go along with it, it's like we're looking at this toxic mess and saying to companies, "You made it, but we'll deal with it." I've got a better idea. How about you made it, you deal with it? Doesn't that make more sense? Imagine that instead of all this toxic e-waste piling up in our garages or in the streets of Guiyu, we sent it to the garages of the CEOs who made it. You can bet that they'd be on the phone to their designers pretty fast demanding they stop designing for the dump. Making companies deal with their e-waste is called extended producer responsibility, or product take-back. If all these old gadgets were their problem, it would be cheaper for them to just design them longer-lasting, less toxic, and more recyclable in the first place. They could even make them modular so that when one part broke, they could just send us a new piece instead of taking back the whole broken mess. Already, take-back laws are popping up all over Europe and Asia. In the US, many cities and states are passing similar laws. These laws need to be protected and strengthened. It's time to get these brainiacs on our side. With take-back laws and citizen action to demand greener products, we can start a race to the top, where designers compete to make long-lasting, toxic-free products. So let's have a green Moore's Law. How about the use of toxic chemicals will be cut in half every 18 months? The number of workers poisoned will decline at an even faster rate. We need to give these designers a challenge they can rise to and do what they do best: innovate. Already, some of them are realizing they're too smart to be dump designers and are figuring out how to make computers without PVC or toxic flame retardants. Good job, guys. But we can do even more. When we take our e-waste to recyclers, we can make sure they don't export it to developing countries. And when we do need to buy new gadgets, we can choose greener products. But the truth is, we are never going to just shop our way out of this problem, because the choices available to us at the store are limited by the choices of designers and policymakers outside of the store. That's why we need to join with others to demand stronger laws on toxic chemicals and on banning e-waste exports. There are billions of people out there who want access to the incredible web of information and entertainment that electronics offer. But it's the access they want, not all the toxic garbage. So let's get our brains working on sending that old design for the dump mentality to the dump where it belongs, and instead building an electronics industry and a global society that's designed to last.